I'm going to just interrupt you for a few more moments to begin our awards ceremony and recognize some of the people who we're here to pay tribute to tonight. I'd like to start by inviting Louise to join me on stage to present the awards tonight. I want to start by telling you a little bit about our first award recipient. You heard his name a little earlier this evening. He's a man who really has changed the world. There are a lot of people around here who've changed the world, and sometimes you have to draw a few different connections as to how they've done it. But with Nicholas Negroponte, it's going to be very obvious how he did this. Now, Nicholas Negroponte has been, or was with, he's trained as an architect and best known as the founder of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Media Lab. He's also known to many of you as the founder of the One Laptop Per Child program. Nicholas Negroponte joined MIT in 1966, and he had visiting professorships at the same time at Yale, Michigan, the University of California, and UC Berkeley. He was also one of the first investors. He was the first investor in Wired magazine back in 1992, and he wrote a column, a monthly column for Wired, and he has had a lot of opinions on the digital world. In 2000, he dedicated himself more fully. In 2006, he dedicated himself more fully to his work on the One Laptop Per Child program, although he retains his appointment as a professor at MIT. In 2005, you may recall, he unveiled in Tunis the $100 laptop computer, also known as the children's machine. It was designed for students in the developing world. The idea is that everybody should be able to have a laptop. And what a remarkable achievement that is. What a remarkable idea to even want to do it, and the fact that they've done so much toward achieving that goal. Negroponte is a well-known investor, having had early-stage investments in many of the companies, particularly in the digital space that we are all familiar with today. And as such, he is the recipient of our first award tonight. I'd like to invite him up to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I listen to these things, and I'm not ever sure who I'm listening about. It doesn't really seem to be me. I wake up in the morning, and I ask myself one question, and that question is, what I'm doing today, will normal market forces do it? And if the answer is yes, then you stop doing it. And the whole purpose of One Laptop Per Child was to do something that industry would not do, because there are roughly 1.2 billion children in this world, 50% of whom don't have electricity at home or at school, and at least in the countries we're in, and that's certainly true, and it's almost a worldwide statistic. So the question that we asked ourselves is, in situations where education really is so poor, and I'll use Afghanistan as an example, 25% of the teachers in Afghanistan are illiterate. The next 25% are only one grade beyond the children. And so when you have a situation like that, you can't just train teachers and build more schools, though you should continue doing that. You have to actually leverage the children themselves. You've got to engage them in their own education. And giving each child a laptop, a connected laptop that winds up, it doesn't use electricity, you hand crank it, and is connected to the internet, and they're connected to themselves. And one example is that we put, just in the laptops, we can put easily 100 books without taking up much space. But when you ship 100 laptops into a village, each laptop has 100 different books. So that means those kids have 10,000 books, previously had none before. So we look at children rather differently than other people. We look at them as agents of change. And probably the most heartwarming result that I've seen from One Laptop Per Child, since it's been going on now for 5 or 6 years, is that many of the children are teaching their parents how to read and write. And to me, that's a real sign of success. And we see it more and more. The economics of this are not as outrageous as they sound. The idea of giving a laptop to a child connected, the cost of ownership, including the purchase price, maintenance, all of that kind of stuff, is $1 a week. Now, $1 a week isn't so outrageous, amortized over a 5-year period. I'll leave you with just one other observation about the economics, because right now the program focuses on really hard, really conflict countries and places like Gaza and so on. But Afghanistan, which is of real interest to us, to follow what Louise said before, it's the precise number, actually, it's almost a round number. The United States spends $2 billion a week on war in Afghanistan, $2 billion. And we spend on education $2 million a week in Afghanistan. And that's USAID and so on. You look at the $2 billion and the $2 million, and you say to yourself, and I haven't had a chance to do this, but say, let's say, Mr. President, all you need to do is move 0.5% from column A to column B, and every child in Afghanistan can have a connected laptop in 18 months. Karzai wants it, Petraeus wants it, McChrystal wanted it beforehand. Why aren't we doing it? That would be a legacy that would actually change the world much more than what we're currently doing. Thank you very much.
She's showing him how to fold it. Thank you. Congratulations, Nicholas Negroponte. You know, we have a segment. I do a segment on my show every single day which highlights somebody like Nicholas who has done something that not only changes the world but can inspire other people to take on their own similar challenges. And as he knows, things have, it has spawned a whole lot of other movements of one blank per child, some very meaningful movements. There's eyeglasses, people who are going out of their way to try and get eyeglasses for children. There's somebody who wants to get Kindle-type books to children because, as Nicholas says, the ability to get children access to more books has such an absolute and proven direct impact on their knowledge and their increase in vocabulary, which will allow them a further education. So not only is it in and of itself a remarkable achievement, the fact that others have decided, wow, for very little money, for the fantastic economics of it, we can actually do more. So once again, congratulations. I want to introduce to you our second award recipient, Ms. Yue-Sai Khan. She is the vice chair of L'Oreal China. People magazine has called her the most famous woman in China. If you're going to be the most famous woman in a country, might as well pick the most populous country. Time magazine proclaimed her the Queen of the Middle Kingdom. The Congressional Record deemed her the de facto citizen ambassador. She is a Chinese-American woman whose life straddles the East and the West as an Emmy-winning television producer, a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and humanitarian. In 1986, the television series One World, produced and hosted by Yue-Sai Khan, aired on China's national television network, CCTV. It gave millions of Chinese the first glimpse of the outside world and made her a household name in China. Forbes magazine reported that she changed the face of China one lipstick at a time. Yue-Sai Khan's humanitarian efforts have focused mainly on education, obviously a theme that you are going to hear here, and cultural exchanges. She built schools in her hometown and libraries in poor regions in northern China. Yue-Sai Khan is the first and only living American featured on a Chinese postage stamp. Please come up.
Actually, it was really neat to be on a postage stamp. As vain as I am, I remember when they asked me to submit them a picture, I was really nervous. I said, which picture am I going to submit? So many people are going to lick me. You just got that? Actually, I was just going to come up here, say thank you, and then go down. And then William down there, I said, Yue-Sai, you have to talk something about China. Since I have been involved in it for the last 25 years, really mainly the time that China has grown enormously. First, I like to just say that I'm very thrilled to be here. I think the award that is given to me really should go to Louise. I think she's an extraordinary woman. I knew very little about this summit until a few months ago, and to be able to see a summit like this, where some of the greatest minds of our country, this country, and the world are assembled, is quite an inspirational experience. So I want to thank you very much for this. Yes. I know that I just have a few minutes, and to summarize, like 25 years of what I've done in China is a little bit daunting. But I want to just quickly say that in 1986, when I launched a new television show, this television show was amazing in many, many ways. Number one, if they ask a foreign, you look at me, I'm Chinese, but I'm not Chinese, I'm American Chinese. So I hold an American passport. To have a government that has been enclosed for so many, many years, to ask a foreigner to host a TV show in China was really an amazing idea. That really shows you one thing. The Chinese government was very smart. They really wanted to use television as a vehicle to educate the population. At that time, not everybody had a television show, so the audience was only about 300 million. Now, no. I mean it very seriously, because in those days there was only one network and one channel. So imagine you put all the MTVs on all the CNNs and everything together, one channel, one network. So if I was on television, I didn't have to be good. I could be really lousy. I would still be very famous. So in those days, I remember they asked me to do this series for China, to do it both in English and Chinese. And more importantly, they say, I want you to show us the real world as the world is, because I'm not a Chinese producer. I'm an American producer. So they really were serious about it. But I said to them, look, who's going to pay for this? I'm going to plan a program for 220 countries. Where are you going to give me the money to produce? And you know how expensive it is to produce television shows, especially on location. And the Chinese said, well, we have no money. CCTV was the poorest network you will ever find in the world, because China had no advertising. At that time, China had no consumerism, none. So I said, well, I had to be Americanized. So I said, well, OK, give me advertising time. You give me advertising time, I'm going to get the advertising to help to support my television show. So I remember the first advertiser was Nestle. Imagine, Nestle was launching coffee in China. Coffee for a country, people drink tea. And that was really very, very amazing to me. And Good to the Last Drop really was an experiment. But after 2 weeks, of the launch, every drop was sold in China. And the television show was therefore the first show on television in China that carried regular advertising. Any of you now today go to China and say, well, consumerism is everywhere, therefore all the TV stations are very rich. CCTV is the richest. The second sponsor I got was Procter & Gamble. And I was really excited, so I telex. Remember those days, telex? I telex the government, and I said, approve me, approve Procter & Gamble. After all, I got them as our second sponsor. And they were very quick in the response, which is very rare in those days. And they said, very sorry, we cannot approve Procter & Gamble because the government does not allow gambling. today, you know, CCTV is absolutely amazingly wealthy. During the news hour, they had to auction their time off. They even have advertising that is like 10 seconds long. So it's really an amazing change. When I was dealing with one station, one network across this country of 1 billion people, today we're dealing with just CCTV alone. It's like 23 stations, 23 channels around the globe. And you can see CCTV here in this country. And you are also talking about every city in China has a city station. You're talking about thousands and thousands of stations. Now, of course, you know that I also own a cosmetic company, which I sold to L'Oreal. And when I started cosmetics, seriously, it was like a joke, because nobody would believe that I could actually sell cosmetics in China that was just very recent. In 1990, I launched the first store in 1992. In China, no one used cosmetics. There were huge debates after I gave a lecture in China that why should we use cosmetics? A school would be split into two. One part of the school would say, we don't believe in using cosmetics. We want to be as natural as possible. And the other side say, give it a chance. We want to be modern. So also we did something quite extraordinary because there was no cosmetic company. So I had to do a lot of education. I did numerous lectures around the country in every kind of, for every kind of organization you can imagine, women's groups, prime minister's wife, and everybody you can imagine. I wrote books, I did television shows, I did radio shows, everything. We basically, Yue-Sai Cosmetics basically really opened the cosmetic business in China. So when I sold the cosmetic company a few years ago to L'Oreal, I sold them 23 companies, and I sold them 800 counters and also 2 factories. And it was really amazing today. Every cosmetic company is in China, even brands I have never heard before in my life. And brands that are from Korea and Germany that you don't even see in the United States, they are there. Everything is there. So the change is enormous, and I find myself always feeling very grateful that I was the witness, and also very fortunate to have been participating in this enormous miracle that it was unfolding in front of me every single day. I hope that this seminar will have, this summit will have a lot more Chinese participating in the near future. They are getting to be a lot more international. They are going to infiltrate everywhere in the world, and I see it every day. And I'm sure that we will benefit a great deal from those participants. As for myself, I am very grateful. I am honored and thrilled that not only in your company, but also in the company of 3 extraordinary gentlemen who are recipients of this award tonight. And I can't tell you how happy I am tonight.
Yue-Sai Khan was saying that the Chinese are going to infiltrate everywhere. I have a colleague, Lou Dobbs, who made a career out of that. He meant it differently. Congratulations. What a great story. I want to call upon, hold on a second. I want to call upon Thaddaeus Ropac to introduce your 3rd award recipient.
Good evening. I was very honored and very happy when Louise Blouin asked me to introduce one of the greatest icons of American painting, the great Alex Katz, here tonight for his award. And he's a friend for many years. We worked together in Europe in the last 20 years in organizing exhibition. I'm his gallerist, and we placed some of his masterpieces in European collections. I think in this room, maybe it's not so important to introduce Alex Katz because everybody knows who he is. And he lived here in America, in New York, in his hometown all his life. He was born in the late 20s, he went to art school at Cooper Union after the war. He studied also in Maine, where he is running a second studio. And we all know his unique style. We all know his paintings of women portraits or man portraits. We know his beach scenes and his garden scenes. We know his night scenes, his landscapes. And Alex Katz developed a work of painting which is absolutely unique. He's the same generation than Andy Warhol and Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns, but he never was a pop artist. He's the same generation than American expressionist painting and abstract painting, but he never did an action painting. He developed his own style, and for many years, I think it was not easy for him to gain the recognition he deserved. And it took him actually a long time to step into this place which rightly he stands in today. And it was only in the 80s, and it was not by museum curators, and it was not by art critics, and this was not by gallerists who kind of rediscovered Alex Katz. It was a generation of younger artists who realized how important this incredible American artist is. Artists like Elizabeth Peyton, who kind of recognized, his incredible statue as one of the columns of American art. And there was an exhibition in the mid-90s in the museum in Zurich, which was called Birth of the Cool, which centered Alex Katz as one of the great influential artists with an amazing reference of his own body of work, but also with an incredible reference to this younger artist who kind of believed that he kind of made a style. He developed paintings which really developed and influenced whole generations. And we're thankful to this younger artist that Alex Katz is in a position we all know him today. And you live in a city with great museums, and all these museums have wonderful paintings. If you go down Madison Avenue, the Whitney Museum, which maybe holds one of the greatest collections of Alex Katz, the Museum of Modern Art, the Metropolitan Museum, but also the Tate Gallery in London, the Centre Pompidou in Paris. You go to Tokyo or to Asia, there's no major museum in the world today who doesn't hold some important paintings. He's still very active. He's painting all the time. He just came back from Maine, told me, and I'm looking forward to see what he was doing tomorrow. He's constantly having exhibitions. At the moment, a big touring show which was called The American View, or The American Way of Seeing, of a one-man show of Alex Katz, which traveled through museums in Scandinavia, Germany, and France. He just finished an exhibition at the Portrait Gallery in London, the National Portrait Gallery. So I think he stays today in a place where great artists are, and I think he's a great example of an iconic American painter. So let's salute Alex Katz, and please come here to receive the award.
Thank you all for coming and supporting it. And thank you, Thaddaeus, for coming all the way from Paris to introduce me. And thank my family for supporting me. It's after the two illustrious speeches, I was prepared to just say, hi, thanks. But it seems that painting, since when I started in it, it was like really a fugitive occupation for a small amount of people. And now it's been a cultural explosion with painting, and it's called part of globalization. So the paintings go all over the place. And I think the interest in all the countries in painting is a very positive thing to people's peace. It's just the opposite of war, and the more people are exposed to art, I think the better off we'll all be. And I think the thing with Ms. Blouin mentioned, the education in the United States is, in the arts, basically, I think is dismal. We have a lot of people, a lot more people, have been educated in colleges. People like to study art. And at one point, we're giving like 250,000 degrees in art in the United States. They have art departments with 10,000 people. This didn't exist 40 years ago. It's a relatively new thing. And it mostly provides a larger audience. And the painting audience has gotten larger and larger, and it's spread. And I think it's just been a terrific thing for all people. Painting exists to the public on many levels. I really think all museums should be free. I mean, art should be for everybody. It also it exists as high-class decoration, and every painting made has a place in society. You know, if you think about it, and I think society is much the better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I found that quite stirring, your views on everybody appreciating art. Obviously, we're in a room populated by people and influenced by Louise, who have a particular appreciation of art. But that discussion about the accessibility of art, I think, is very well taken. Thank you for that, and congratulations. The next recipient perhaps is getting the award simply because he's got the best name of the crowd. His full name is Count Guy Philippe Henri Land de Montebello. Right? I'd give him an award for that. He is a remarkable man. He served from 1977 to 2008 as the director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. That is quite an accomplishment. He was both the longest-serving director in the institution's history and the longest-serving director of any major art museum in the world. He was educated in New York and at Lycée Français. He graduated from Harvard with a degree in art history. He did announce his retirement in 2008 from the museum. He has taken on some other posts. He's also the first professor to teach the history and culture of museums at New York University's Institute of Fine Arts. He is also a full-time professor at the Institute for Fine Arts. I wish to introduce to you Philippe de Montebello.
Thank you, Ali, very much, and thank you, Louise, for the privilege of being here this evening and accepting this very prestigious prize in such wonderful company, and especially in the context of globalization, of creativity, of art. And I was interested in Alex Katz's mention of the word access, because in many ways, and paradoxically, access is one of the problematic aspects of cultural exchanges, and culture and the visual arts, with which I have a little bit of experience in terms of globalization and the whole world. As you all know, the visual arts, art, are really the deepest aspirations of the culture of a people. They are also, as a consequence, rather vulnerable. And in the whole realm of globalization, I think we have all witnessed and read about and seen that there is, and I think the term was used a bit earlier, a veritable explosion in the number of museums built around the world and the number of exhibitions traveling around the world. The problem with this, of course, is that works of art are fragile, works of art are made of perishable materials, and far more important and critical is that they are unreplicable. And there is the paradox of the great wish to have them travel about the world and at the same time preserve them for future generations. But it goes further, I think, than just the physical realm of the work of art. The work of art represents also the world of the imagination of people, and as such, they are not as readily accessible as one might think. Cultural exchanges lead more often than not, as the result perhaps of a number of rather and often superficial temporal events of notoriety, to more bemusement than they do to understanding. And part of the reason for this is globalization has come so fast that it has short-circuited a whole element of education and preparation. And if I can take just a few seconds extra, I will give simply two very brief anecdotes to illustrate, and they really are prototypical of a situation that the confronting of the work of different cultures is not as evident, as obvious as it would seem. At the opening of that marvelous museum of I.M. Pais and Villemot doing the interiors in Doha of Islamic art, at the opening dinner I was seated between two gentlemen from Qatar, one of whom turned to me and said, "I don't understand what we are doing here. What is Islamic art? All of the things I saw are things that are in my mosque. They are cult objects. They are things that we use every day." And there is, in the emerging part of the world, the one that is the heir or the reaction to the Enlightenment and the museums in the West, not yet a sense of the desacralization of art into the realm of pure aesthetic experience. And for some people, it's very difficult. I was lecturing in Shanghai a year and a half ago, sponsored by a group of journalists. And they had just closed an exhibition of Dutch painting in the Golden Age with works of Rembrandt, Frans Hals, Ruysdaels, and so forth. And at the completing luncheon, the show had closed, and the poster was still up with the self-portrait of Rembrandt. And I said to the group I was lunching with, I said, "Well, what did you think of the exhibition of Dutch painting?" And a young lady who was a reporter next to me said, "Well, we were very disturbed by it." And I said, "Well, what disturbed you so much?" I began to understand instinctively, or perhaps because I know a little bit, what disturbed her. But she said, "Well, we felt after looking at the show that we had to rush upstairs to the second floor to look at Chinese painting to recover serenity." And think about it. I don't have slides behind me to illustrate it, but a self-portrait by Rembrandt emerges powerfully out of chiaroscuro, light and dark, as a living figure that's going to jump out in your space. Chinese painting is flat, it's linear, it's calligraphic. There isn't that kind of realism. So on a certain level, cultural exchanges need to prepare, need first the whole element of education. But the museums around the world, and I will complete with this, which are a totally Western construct. Art is a Western construct. It's not natural to other civilizations. Museums around the world have begun, and increasingly, to accept the so-called capitalized other, showing with similar pride of place the art of all cultures. And I think if any message can be taken from this, it is that, frankly, it must teach us a certain degree of humility and of tolerance. And by that I mean questioning the primacy that all of us up to today have had such a tendency to give to our own individual culture. Thank you very much.
I feel more sophisticated just for listening to that speech. And I have the same response when I look at Dutch paintings of the Golden Age. Thank you and congratulations on a remarkable tenure. Wow, what a great collection of award recipients tonight. Not just the selection of all of you because of what you've done, and you've all done remarkable, world-changing things, but also because of the grace with which you received these honors and shared with us some of your experiences and how you came to do the things that you did. I appreciate that. I feel like I've learned a lot about how people go into situations and really make the world a better place, as you all have done. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask you all, please, to enjoy dessert, and Louise will come and speak to you in a few moments. Hello, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt your dinner. It pains me to interrupt when people have come together and are having the kind of discussion that you just all had. It pains me to hear the silence. You are all a very polite group, but it was just great to hear you all talking, so I will try not to take too much of your time. I'll let you get back to those great conversations, because that is, I think, what Louise hopes happens at these types of events. My name is Velshi. I'm the chief business correspondent from CNN. I'm also the anchor of CNN every day from 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and the host of CNN's business programming on Saturday at 1 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. And I should be sleeping right now. But I wanted to get out here tonight because this is a very special week. Tomorrow will be the opening of Oliver Stone's Wall Street, and I'm in it. So I'm not kidding. Stop with it. No, it's a very special week tonight because of this. Look, this is a fantastic week in New York, regardless of movie premieres. This is always an exciting week for those of us who like to call New York home. It's full of traffic jams, as you know, and more police than you thought actually existed, and helicopters and things like that. But it is a gathering of people. And a particularly special gathering takes place at this summit every year. And it is always a special event because Louise manages to bring together amazing people from around the world with great strengths and great skills, diplomats, scientists, people from all walks of life, and to discuss the world's issues, the issues that face us. And I was relating earlier at a panel that I was moderating that exactly 2 years ago today, I remember being at this summit, and we were in the midst of the worst financial crisis. And by the way, 2 years ago this week was the worst of that financial crisis, because that was the 3-week period that we were in the middle of, in which no one could make a deal to borrow money. I remember standing outside a session upstairs, and a gentleman who was on the panel I was at was in the private equity business, and he was on the phone in between things because they couldn't raise money for something that they needed to, and this was repeating itself across the entire world. That was a very frightening week, even for guys like me who do nothing but study what goes on in the business world. But I remember thinking to ourselves, we had a fantastic panel, and we were talking about the economy, and this event is populated by people who do not think in the now, but think in the future. And it's populated by people for whom problems are things to be solved, and for whom solving problems is an opportunity. And Louise continues to do that. And if I thought it was urgent 2 years ago, it is more urgent today, given the political situation that we are facing in this country. And that's not a partisan comment. That is a comment on the absolute lack of tenor and respect in our political discourse today. It is not acceptable, and it is somewhat embarrassing in America to see what is going on. So to come to a place where the goal and the intent and the mission is to bring people together to talk, to solve problems, and to present opportunities for the rest of the world is such a laudable achievement at any point. But Louise, the efforts that you and your staff put into this on an ongoing basis are just so important at this particular time in our history. So I congratulate you for that, and I invite you up to welcome everybody.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Your Excellency, I want to thank our team. I would like to have a round of applause for all the work that they have done, because I am nothing, I do nothing. So what Ellie said is not true. And a special person in my life, my fiancé, Matthew Kabatoff, because he's worked a lot on the summit. And so a special thank. So I guess I opened, my first opening speech was about looking at the world and trying to see what are the common denominators that we see in our opportunities. And my closing speech was about don't be pessimistic. Because I heard a lot of dialogues that were pretty depressing. And I think that when you go out to dinner and you go out in the streets in New York or in America these days, it's pretty gloomy. But let's say that there's other people in the world that don't have food on their table and have no hope for education, and that's not the case of America. We engaged in discussions with heads of states in Central America and other parts of the world to see how they have been going through this recession and sort of recession, depression, whatever you want to call it, and how their numbers are looking and their growth numbers are looking pretty positive. So there are ways of doing things, and I must say that we're turning to America because it's a power that's very important. The geographic sort of pie and the landscape, economic landscape, is changing every second, and we'll probably see in the next few years 40 to 50% of the growth coming out of the developing world. So it's nice to see that. It's very special to see that, because it means that those that did not have food now have food, and maybe with Nicholas Negroponte being here, maybe they'll have one laptop as well, which is very important. Because at the end of the day, that if we don't solve that, it becomes a nightmare and it becomes very expensive. The defense budget for the United States is close to $780 billion. And the investment in education is $150 billion. Is there something wrong? Yes, there's something wrong. So there's something wrong because at the end of the day, if you spend too much as a country on welfare, on healthcare systems that are not efficient, or again on different types of expenses like defense, you do not have enough money to reinvest in your capital. And what is your capital? Your capital are your people, and it's education. The other thing that's important to invest in the next future with globalization is to be part of this growth that's going to happen outside of the Western world. Of course, you'll have growth inside, but if you can benefit from the growth outside, bring it back to your country, you'll be better off. So I say, let's start to run countries like, or corporations. I said that in my closing statement, and let's look at making sure that we spend in the right places. And it's possible, everything is possible. But what comes up in all of our discussion is values. I've been talking and speaking about values, but you know, values is sort of a soft thing. I think people understand more about, when I say about values, I say Wall Street, greed, values. So maybe people relate to it more this year than they did 5 years ago. But our value systems is something that is just not working very well. And I think that if we put generosity at the bottom of our priorities and greed as well at the bottom, we will have big issues, more that will be even greater than the financial crisis. And when we touch environment and we say to ourselves we have no money to spend on environmental issue, if you hear the stats on environment, it is very scary. So it's not about, there's lots of opportunities, there's lots of things to do in this world. And the reason why we get together here is because probably I've been traveling for the last 25 years across the globe, and I feel that there's a great need for conversation, dialogue, not only here, but as well on the internet, to engage in a dialogue of the world, because that's where it's going to be happening. And because the policies are more local and the audience is local, it's very hard to get that audience to get interested in what happens with the neighbors that are getting closer together. What do I bring to this? I brought, in the last 6 years, I've been investing $100 million on platforms to bring cultures together. With artinfo.com, we have brought millions of people together, and we're engaged in launching that in 15 countries. But we're very small compared to what Jimmy Wales here has done with Wikipedia. We can just follow his example. All we can do is reach out as many people that we can, and to try to change this world, because culture basically embeds values, belief, tradition, respect for the other, religion, all these soft little things that become a big, huge problem. If you touch Bosnia, Bosnia was a cultural issue. Conflict. If we talk about the Middle East, it's not about money, it's about culture, misunderstanding, lack of respect. And that's why we decided, out of all these major issues from the MDG, to take one part of it and to engage in culture. And we have now guests that come and talk about other issues, and now we're going to be ready in a year from now to engage in a very big other issue. And as well help other people that are struggling to get either policy change in other issues such as environment or poverty or other. So all I can say is that we're very fortunate to be here all together, and I thank you all for your participation, and I thank you, the guests that have come for this evening. I thank you for your participation, and maybe you'll come to the summit next year, because nothing can be done without all of you and all other people. It is not the governments that are going to be able to sustain that model. We need, as independent people, plus foundation, plus corporation, to get engaged. Thank you very, very much. Have a lovely evening.